Today we've got an especially interesting presentation for you about a subject of which I am very intimately familiar. It's on the subject of meme magic or memetic magic, and that's one of the subjects in the occult that I find most fascinating and interesting, and I've played a somewhat notable role in the development of meme magic, so I feel like I have the right to talk about this sort of stuff as though I know it, because I really do know it, at least some aspects of it. So today's presentation is entitled The Dark Side of Meme Magic: What Most People Don't Understand About Memetic Magicians and Memetic Magic. So first we'll start off with what is meme magic. Now, most people watch this channel probably have at least some idea of what meme magic is, and people who watch this may come to this channel in the future and come back to this video and watch it. They're probably a little less likely to be as familiar with meme magic, but people on boards like X and Pole and the former Infinity Chan definitely are very familiar with meme magic, as they played a big role in the rise of the popularity of meme magic to the status which it has reached now, which is pretty considerable. I don't know if I'd still consider it underground or not. The actual practice of memetic magic is still pretty underground, but knowledge of the subject I don't think is necessarily underground anymore. So when you want to talk about what is memetic magic, it's actually a more complicated definition than you might expect. Now, at the most basic level, you could just say memetic magic is just magic that is practiced by the people who use memes, but that really doesn't mean anything when you analyze it at a deep level. Like, what do you mean magic? What do you mean people who use memes? Where does the memes and the magic connect? And the real answer is that memetic magic can basically be divided into two primary subcategories. You've got the propaganda subcategory of meme magic, and you've got the actual occultist or occultism or spiritual aspect of meme magic, and they very much tie together, and that's something that I think only people who really understand memetic magic would know. Propaganda, basically the transformation of ideology or the mass consensus, or the way the masses view the world, the cosmology of the masses, is created in large part by what's called ideology, or sometimes people pronounce it ideology, but I like to say ideology. And the Marxists of the 60s, 70s, and 80s were very familiar with the subject of ideology. In fact, I believe it was Louis Althusser who, in his Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses, wrote one of the first papers on ideology. And it's a really important subject. I'm definitely not pushing Marxism or any political agenda here. I just know where the subject or the modern form of ideology came from. And also, most of the modern understandings of propaganda and the art of propaganda came from the Marxists, because in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, in particular, the Marxists were very much the counterculture and the underground, unlike today. And they really wanted to learn and understand society and learn how to manipulate society. So they necessarily came to this point where any objective, reasonable, clear look at society would lead a person, particularly from an outsider, underground, countercultural perspective, is this idea that the masses are being controlled by programming. And in the case of the early neo-Marxists, what they called it was political programming, or a false consciousness, but nowadays we pretty much call it ideology. And even a lot of people still don't understand that term or use that term today, but it's very important. Ideology is like another layer over your consciousness through which you perceive all of reality, and it's very potent. And how is that a cult? Well, there's a lot of ways that's a cult, but even before we get into the second half of memetic magic, which is the occult aspect, like in a literal, magical, spiritual sense, you've got to understand that even the propaganda aspect is very much, and the subject of ideology are very much in the occult realm, in a sense. Maybe not the magical, spiritual occult realm, although it does touch that. But most people just don't understand that even above all the levels you got in your mind, you've got your deep mind, you've got your subconscious, you've got your unconscious, you've got your conscious everyday perception, but above that you've got a layer of ideology that was created by programming, but by your exposure to the world and the masses and the people around you. And a lot of that is inherently political, hence the term ideology. The study of ideas, and it's the study of ideas for the point of understanding the political apparatus that creates those ideas. In many ways, a modern human is a modern human because of ideology, because we believe we're humans. We don't necessarily believe, at least in general, that there's different types of humans or subcategories of humans. We're all humans, but is that really the case? Or is that just the subject or the end result of ideological programming? Now, you could easily argue, well, biologically, clearly all humans are humans, but remember, the most powerful ideology hides itself as natural truths of the universe. And all those subjects are really fascinating to me, and someday I'll come back to meme magic and ideology and make a much longer video than this one, but for the moment it's good enough to understand is that a large portion, perhaps half or more, of meme magic is just about transforming ideology and watching the results that transformation of ideology has on the masses. And as the ideology or the worldview or the filter around the perception of the masses change, the way the masses or the average people act, or the normies, changes too. So a well-placed meme can control the perceptions of large portions of populations and change the norms and attitudes and behaviors of the population. And if you study that and watch how particular memes affect the public in particular ways and channel people towards taking certain types of actions, you can really start to understand why there's so much power in the propaganda aspect of meme magic. Now, there's another side of meme magic that a lot of people don't take seriously, but they really should, and that's the literal application of magic, sometimes with a K, or sorcerers' techniques, or spirituality, or shamanism, or whatever you want to include or believe. All of those are in there in meme magic. And so when you attach genuine occult or sorceress or magical or shamanic practices to memes, that becomes meme magic. So how's that for a definition? You've got all that tied up into meme magic. So I'm moving on to the next slide here. I can get this to work. So part of the point of this particular presentation is to let people know that there's a very real dark aspect of meme magic. Now, most people probably kind of know this already, or they intuit it. Particularly people who are opposed to the goals of the particular dominant meme magical group. So nowadays that would be more on the right wing, white nationalists, white people, white guys like me. We really used meme magic the most and kicked it into high gear recently, and I think that's great, but I'm not here to push my political agendas on you, not on this channel anyway. I might in person or something, but that isn't what this channel is about. So but there's a very dark aspect, many dark aspects to meme magic that should be talked about, particularly for people who really want to understand the subject or potentially want to get into the subject. And some of these black aspects or dark aspects of meme magic may even be a surprise to many occultists. Like, some won't, but some of them will. So what are some of the black or dark aspects of meme magic? Well, black propaganda. And it's fairly obvious that if you can control propaganda and manipulate ideological systems, you can do that for the advantage of you, your group, your corporation, your government, or the elite. You can do meme magic to help people and to free people. You can control people's the normies' perceptions of the world in order to free them, or you can do it in order to enslave them and extract economic gain, power, wealth, status from them. And basically, I think there's a lot of that going on, even among people who claim to be working to use meme magic to free the masses. I think a lot of them are really just trying to push their own political agendas, and that's just the way it is, and it always will be. But it's very important to understand that. And a strong argument could be made that corporations and governments are already and have been using dark meme magic for a long time in their own ways, through things like commercials and their own forms of black propaganda movies, particularly large-scale mainstream movies. Not so much anymore, but it certainly was the case in the 80s and 90s and 2000s and 70s that the movies were a huge source of dark meme magic. Now, how can I say that? If you're thinking memes are just like pictures of Pepe the Frog with jokes on them, well, that's one of the modern forms of ultra-modern meme magic. But meme magic means so much more than just even memes you see on the internet. A meme is it's a packet of information that transmits between people. It's like a replicating idea or a set of ideas or alliance of ideas, and or a cultural unit that replicates in a more cultural anthropological sense. But that doesn't just apply to memes online. That applies to movies. That applies to radio, television, body language, peer pressure, language itself. I mean, memes are in a lot of things, everything. So meme magic can take many forms. Even the clothes you wear are projecting ideologies and sending messages. I'd have to think about what the message of this is, but one of the messages is it's pro sports. Pro sports has got a whole packet of memes that goes along with it. This shirt definitely represents like regionalism. These are underground meanings, like these are Seattle Kraken, and if you're wearing a sports shirt for your own team from your own regional area, at the same time you're promoting this idea that your area is different from other areas, and you're aligning with your area. And in a way, this is almost a shirt promoting like regional nationalism, like making Washington State and Oregon and into what's called Cascadia. These are things that, just a stupid example, but that's meme magic. Like, this shirt is meme magic in a sense. It's more on the propaganda sense, but it's definitely meme magic, and something that people forget about meme magic or never learned because they weren't necessarily involved in the whole Keck thing in 2016, is that when enough people focus on the same ideas and the same memes in whatever forms those memes may be, it will affect like the deepest levels of human group consciousness, and actual miraculous things will start to occur. So that's where the propaganda of meme magic actually crosses over into the occultism, even if there's no actual sorceress techniques being used in particular, which there are too, but that's a separate issue. Just the very fact that large numbers of people focus on the same ideas and have the same symbols for them creates like an egregor, if you want to call it that. I hate that word, but a mental, an astral construct that becomes very powerful in some cases, and can be accessed by anyone who can find a way to connect to that. And that egregor can actually manifest changes in the material plane that are like spiritual and magical in nature. It's like you got to see it to believe it, and I've definitely seen it much more than most people, and it's pretty amazing. Like, that's all I can say about it. But then you've also got another dark aspect of meme magic is simply when people are using dark sorceress or dark magical or black shamanic techniques and adding them into memes. Like, and by black, what do I mean? Well, or dark, what do I mean? That's a very interesting subject, because when I tried to channel and learn what actual black magic really was, I was told that the great teachers of black magic in the world are the people who try to keep you from achieving your true will. Now that sounds kind of Crowleyan or OTO. That's all right. I mean, they're both all right. Read all Crowley stuff and OTO. Well, whatever. And that channel was suggesting that really what black magic is about is trying to pull people away from their true wills, other people, and that really is black magic when you think about it, trying to block people from achieving the purpose for which they were born in the universe. That's black magic. But in more traditional sense, black magic is usually considered to be, magic that's meant to hurt people, even kill people, magic that's meant to curses, hexes, illusion magic, the transmission of false information that leads to harm, things like that. And there are definitely, whenever you've got a big group of people who a number of which are practicing real occult magic or practices within memes, there's no way you're going to avoid people doing the black or the dark occultism in memes. So moving on to the next slide. Now, what is something that a lot of people really don't understand about meme magic? And this is something I understand very well because I understand how I came to understand meme magic. And for those of you who don't already recognize me already, I was the author of the first book on meme magic that became popular, and honestly it was probably the first book on meme magic. I don't know of any others and that came before it, and it was called Memetic Magic: Manipulation of the Root Social Matrix and the Fabric of Reality. And I know what pushed me to write that, and I know since I was a kid I've been an outsider most of the time, not always but a lot, and being outside of society you learn a lot of things about society, and you understand that you come to understand that the mainstream and powerful groups within the mainstream are basically, in a way, clones. Like, there's certain ideologies and programmings that are passing among and through people that make them the way they are, and they wear certain uniforms and certain types of clothes. And, everybody can see that when they actually look, but it kind of gets thrown right in your face when you're an outsider. You can see that really clearly. So, meme magic, for me, came from a pretty dark place. It came from being an outsider. It came from rough times, hating society, having a lot of trouble with people and groups, and that's what one of the things that people really don't understand is, like, you could potentially become a powerful meme or very intelligent and effective meme magician by being very social and understanding all the ins and outs of sociality and getting along with groups and always being popular. That's one route to it, but realistically there's another route that probably can become a little more powerful, a little quicker, and that's the exact opposite of that. So while memes are very much meme magic is very much a science of controlling populations and controlling popularity and trying to make things popular and making norms and putting peer pressure on people to act in conformity with your will. The thing that gets you to that point and makes you effective at that and understanding how it works is actually the opposite. It's not being a part of the mainstream. It's not following norms. It's not accepting the truth as told to you by other people. So I tend to think outsiders have a big advantage with meme magic, and in many cases the most powerful meme magicians are very much some of the most extreme outsiders. But you can't just be an outsider or you won't be a meme magician, because if you don't have enough ability to reassert yourself into society, if you can't fit in enough to pass those memes, well, then you're not going to be an effective meme magician. So there's a balance that needs to be made. But don't assume that, it's kind of like Facebook was created by a guy that was very much not considered one of the coolest people, and Facebook became it isn't now anymore, but it became one of the coolest, social things around. Well, meme magic is very much a social art. It's all about sociality and populations and masses and popularity and norms and what you're supposed to do and how you fit in and how you become popular, and making something so popular that everybody wants to do it, whether by force or coercion or even telling the truth. The thing that gets you to that point is very much the opposite. Like, when people see me out in society, they would never think I was someone who understood things like propaganda and meme magic at a deep level, when in fact I was one of the foundational people involved with that. And why? For the same reason they would never see me as doing it, because they're forcing me to the outside of society, the edges, and it's from there that I saw all these things that I saw. I mean, the whole book came from my experiences around here in Seattle. So Seattle's, and with the people, a lot of it had to do with the people that I was close to, even my family, So Yeah, meme magic comes from a rough place. It comes from a very programmed place. It comes from a place where you're not supposed to challenge norms, and if you do, you get punished for it. Those are the sort of things that create a meme magician, and that's the dark side of meme magic that a lot of people don't understand or don't want to understand. Is you want to be a powerful meme magician, you better be willing to challenge culture and be shunned at the most vicious possible levels. The ability to see into the root social matrix is gained by isolation from the root social matrix. And what is the root social matrix? It's basically just a term I use for the society as it is as a total, like with all the subcultures all built in together. It's like the root of the social matrix. I don't know what better way to put it. Memetic magic is the magic of the outsider. It doesn't have to be. I could see a popular person being good at meme magic just because they understand what's popular for people and they have enough connections to spread the memes. But it's going to be a different form of meme magic than the type of meme magic that's going to come from the outsider. And the meme magic from the that's going to come from the outsiders will tend to be pretty dark meme magic, because an outsider becomes an outsider because they're not accepted by society. So how do you think the outsider is going to view society? They're going to be people that don't respect the masses, don't respect society. They're going to tend to be elitists, even if they're challenging elitists with their meme magic. And yeah, I'm very much like that in a way. I wouldn't necessarily call myself an elitist, but I'm very intolerant of things about the masses that I find it especially oppressive and foolish. So on to the next slide. So I put a few quotes in here that I think are pretty important and speak to the points I'm trying to make here. I don't have the page numbers here, but whatever. These are from the book I wrote. Whether the memetic structure has any objective truth or not is only important in regards to how readily it is accepted by the target population. If the target population is intelligent enough to perceive the objective truth of a given matter, in most cases they are not, and if they then are the type inclined to resist memes which do not correspond to objective truth, and again, most are not overly concerned with the objective truth of the matter, then fashioning a memetic structure whose truth is not grounded in objective reality is bound to fail and possibly backfire. Now, there's two particularly important points there, I think, that stick out above the others is if the target population is intelligent enough to perceive the objective truth of a given matter, and in most cases they are not. And that's pretty much just a fact. Now, is that because everybody is dumb? Not necessarily. I think a lot of people are dumb, and I think, I've kind of evolved in my thinking over the last 10, 15 years. Now, I understand that a lot of it has to do with, it's not so much that people are dumb, although they certainly are dumb. I think most people have some potential to be smart. It's just they don't have time to focus on every issue that they'd like to focus on, and they also don't necessarily have the discernment to choose which subjects they should be focusing on. So if someone isn't really studying the memes or the ideology that they're being exposed to at a deep level, and they're not using their willpower to overcome the power of the propaganda, which is controlling their thoughts, actions, and perceptions, then yeah, they're going to look dumb and they're going to act dumb. And I'm the same way. Like I can be very dumb at times. More so now than before. Hold on just one second. In a bit of a spiritual mood tonight, and this puts me more in a spiritual state of mind. Now, the second point is, and if they then are the type inclined to resist memes which do not correspond to objective truth, and again, most are not. See, that's the thing. That's another important point is, it's kind of a myth that people want the truth. Most people don't want the truth. Most people also don't want to be free. They want to be controlled. At different levels and at different times in their lives and at different potencies. But Most people aren't smart enough to recognize the programming, and most people don't actually care if it's programming or not. They don't care if it's true. I present the truth so many times to some of these programmed bots that I come into contact with a lot. People that I have real problems with, and it doesn't matter to them. And even if I'm, it's like in the movie They Live, where, the wrestler guy, whatever his name is, I know his name, but I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm not going to say it, gets into a fight with the other wrestler, and it's like a knock-down, drag-out fight for 20 minutes just to get the guy to look to see through the glasses. It's like, it really is like that, and that's why that movie's such a masterpiece. This, John Carpenter understood meme magic in his own way, probably well before I did. I remember being really influenced by that movie. That's still one of my favorite movies to this day, and if you haven't seen They Live, well, definitely see it, and think about this when you watch it. So I'll go on to the next quote. The man of the masses is able to create fashioned memetic structures and download them into the idea sphere, following the same general rules discussed above. These fashioned memes of the masses are very prevalent. The memetic structures and thought viruses, the mental programming and sociocultural conditioning, which form the framework and contents of the mind of the man of the masses. And so that one I think is meant to be continued on this next slide. So let's see what we got. I was wondering, the man and the masses are constantly being downloaded into the idea sphere as the extremely powerful ideal type. An ideal type is a dominant memetic structure. Thought viruses seek to replicate themselves into uninfected minds. But these so-called fashion memes of the masses could be more correctly labeled spontaneous memes, for though the creator consciously thinks a willful and original memetic structure is being produced, the creator's actual conscious mind is not really their own. The man of the masses thinks the thoughts of others because he's been programmed to do so. Thus, he mistakenly believes the memetic structures he creates are the result of his own considerations. Only when a mind has been purified to a high degree from the programmatical influences of the root social matrix can any memetic structure of willful creation correctly be labeled fashioned, or willed, or engineered, or created. Where a man of the masses fashions his memes according to what he has been programmed to see, the individual fashions memes seeing all that the man of the masses can see and all that he cannot as well. An individual operates with an understanding of the entire sociocultural system, while a man of the masses works within pre-programmed boundaries. So that's a big stumbling block for people who want to become effective memetic magicians. So if that's you and you want to become an effective memetic magician, the first thing you need to do is make sure your memetic magic is not just an expression, kind of a somewhat hidden expression of the programming that's deeper within your mind that you don't realize you have. Now, to some degree, that's going to be the case with anyone, because even the languages we use are programmed memetic structures, of which, we can't really get around. But the point is, you want to free yourself up from the programming of the masses, and then act from your own true will based on your own perceptions of your own surroundings. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand. That the effective memetic magician is a person who is very individualistic in a sense, but he's also really interested in transforming groups and masses. And the most powerful memetic magician, I believe anyway, operates from a place where they use their own experiences and the lesson. Society teaches every single person the lessons they need to learn in order to learn the secrets of society. And when you really think about that, it becomes clear why that is the case. So if you listen to those lessons, you have your personal lesson plan for becoming a memetic magician. Just observe your surroundings, observe your interactions with groups, people, and populations, and the good ones and particularly the bad ones, and learn from them. And that's how you can write your own book of how to be a memetic magician. And you'll be more powerful with your memetic magic if you do it from the perspective of your own unique experience. You don't want to copy other people. That's not a memetic magician. It may be an effective person in some ways, but a memetic magician is a person who separates themselves from the world to become an individual, draws power in and knowledge and perception from their own environment, and returns to society and transforms that into a magic that can influence and transform the masses in a way that will either help the world as a whole, or depending on if you're, a good or a dark memetic magician, or transform the world in such a way that you become more powerful because of it, or you or the group you represent, whatever type of group that might be. Now, here's a couple more quotes. Seeing if I got any water around here. A great mistake of the uninitiated is to equate successful replication with essential goodness. Successfully replicating memetic structures, the beliefs of the masses, for the most part, possess the power to replicate well and therefore unify human belief, no more, no less. To repeat, the strongest power inherent in most belief systems, complex memetic structures, is the power to unify great numbers of people through the unification of their beliefs. Unification of belief equates to unification of action. Nations and religions are formed on memetic structures possessing extraordinarily strong and efficient replication mechanisms. So, important pitfall to avoid, again, a trap, is don't equate successful replication with essential goodness. Replication just means replication, and a lot of times the memes that replicate the best don't have any particular relation to truth. In fact, they may be the opposite of truth. The point of the meme may be to influence people's perceptions and behaviors by feeding them false information. Nowadays, people are really starting to understand that, but back when this book was written in 2004, that was still very much part of the underground. Like, people would call you crazy just for saying that. I'm very used to being called crazy for lots of different reasons. It sounds absurd now to call someone crazy for saying that you can be programmed by society, but like that's what they did back then. And why? Because they're trying to control the population and control them with memes. And one of those memes was the dark memes out there was this idea that anyone who thought that they were being programmed was paranoid. Like, they used to use the term paranoid schizophrenic. Funny, that term has now been written out of the DSM-V, or whatever the fuck they call the official psychological/psychiatric manual. Why? Because it was bullshit in the first place. I mean, there's some truth to it, and there's definitely paranoid people and things. And even I have shown paranoid tendencies at times, but I'm definitely not paranoid schizophrenic, and I don't think most people that get called that are. I think it's a political term disguised as a mental health diagnosis or whatever. But at least they took it out of the manual. That's something. Sociocultural purity is one of the essential goals of memetic magic, though it is not realistically possible to attain 100% purity from root social matrix contamination. A level of purity can be achieved which is high enough to allow self-willed action as opposed to the socially willed action of the masses. An individual sets themselves apart from the programming and sociocultural conditioning of the masses in order that the root social matrix may be effectively manipulated without the incurrence of the negative influences of retro manipulation bred from contact with sociocultural constructs. And that paragraph is actually my favorite paragraph in the whole book, and I think that's one of the most important paragraphs in the whole book. Basically explains in a paragraph this idea, in perhaps technical terms, that you become a memetic magician by purifying yourself from the beliefs of the masses. You withdraw from the beliefs and the ideology of the masses to such a point that you start to have your own thoughts and perceptions. And once you get those thoughts and perceptions, you're smart enough and willful enough to believe them, come back into society, repackage those understandings, communicate them through memes to the masses, and transform society in that way. That's what memetic magic is all about, from me, and I feel like I have the right to say what it's all about, like, at least at some level. I mean, it changes, but that's where it came from. That's my idea for what memetic magic is. So let's go to the last slide. This is another dark aspect of memetic magic that I never really hear talked about in a direct sense. Like, memetic magic is very much a dark art in a lot of ways. I don't know any other way to put it. Like, it comes from a dark place, and you gain the power to potentially manipulate populations in extremely dark ways, in large numbers. I mean, you aren't going to be necessarily cursing people and stuff like that, and it's good because I don't like that. I don't really do that. But you can and definitely will change their thoughts, beliefs, and actions, perceptions, thoughts, and actions. That's what I like to say, PTAs. And when that happens, you're creating like the whole system for which other people now are going to be subject to peer pressure and made outsiders if they go against, and I'm causing other people to, or meme magicians can cause other people to go through the same sorts of isolation that they went through to learn their meme magic. So it's kind of a cycle. Maybe 10, 20 years, those people will come around and become new meme magicians and transform society in such a way that now there's new norms and pressures on people and new illusions out there that people have got to break through. Meme magicians are very much illusion creators, illusionists. Now this is a pretty potent paragraph, I thought, in the book too, and it speaks to the dark side of meme magic. When the illusion is fully dispelled and the world is seen for what it is, countless hordes of programmed zombies launching unrelenting attacks against potential leaders, the evolved human will finally understand without a doubt that evolved humans are soldiers engaged in a war with the world, and as such, will be much more mentally prepared to fight. To be willing to die in the face of such an assault is what gives a human true life. A short and honorable life is preferable to a single day of slavery. And when I look back at that paragraph many years later, I can definitely see stuff in there that I didn't necessarily see when I write it. Even calling people who are memetic magicians, like I believed myself to be at the time, evolved is a very programmed term, and it's a very dark term, because if I'm evolved, then particularly if I'm talking about evolution in the sense of advancement rather than Darwinian evolution, which is differential survival and reproduction of competing phenotypes, which doesn't necessarily suggest advancement. It just means you fit in with your environment better. So my use of the term evolution here actually is the exact opposite of what the term evolution really means. I'm saying evolution in the sense of like the omega point evolution, where you're evolving towards a greater and greater state till you reach the ultimate state or whatever. And that's the way a lot of people use that term anyway in common parlance. But I'm talking about evolved humans, and that necessarily implies that people who aren't involved are unevolved. And that comes with a whole lot of baggage and a whole lot of belief systems and a whole lot of justification for enslaving the masses so that people like me can run things, make choices, push society in a direction that it should be pushed based on our understandings of society. And do I still believe that? Yeah. I'm not afraid to say that I do, but there you go. You're looking at a person who actually was involved with the foundational, structure of meme magic as it is today. Like, that's what I'm like, and I understand that things like that are kind of dark when you actually examine them. Would I enslave a mass population to promote the transformation of society into a form that I think it needs to be transformed into? I could say I wouldn't, but wouldn't I? And I think a lot of the meme magicians, even on boards like Poll and X, I think they're similar, but we've definitely got different beliefs and different ideas of what society should look like. So there's a lot of, ideological conflict between different types of meme magicians. We're definitely not all evolved. Sorry, I didn't mean that term. We're definitely not all aligned in our thinking and our goals. But I think a lot of us, I think any person that learns how to manipulate the masses, just the fact that they're even trying to learn that stuff strongly suggests that they want to control the masses. And yes, that is the dark side of meme magic. And yes, I'm a much more understanding of that part of meme magic now than I was even 20 years ago. But even then, I kind of understood it. I've toned down my elitism. I really don't see myself as elite at this time, but that doesn't mean I don't look down on the masses. I still do, pretty significantly. But hey, that's what this presentation is about. It's a look at the dark side of meme magic, and you know, whatever you can read from my personality, I'm one of those meme magicians. You know, I got my secrets, and you know, I got my soft side, and I got my tough side. So you know, I can be nice. It can be pretty cold too. So am I a dark meme magician? Maybe. You know, maybe. Keck's out there. Seen a lot of things. Okay, so this was a nice change. I had fun talking about meme magic. I will certainly, in the future, make a longer, more in-depth video about the actual history of meme magic and its relationship to the occult, because I think I can do that better than a lot of people. I've seen some videos on meme magic online that didn't think. I mean, they're fine, but they really don't go into depth. Most of them are from people who weren't necessarily involved at a foundational level, but that's all right. I just think that a video like that is needed. So have a good night. That's my second video for the night. I finished 2 today. Don't know what got me in the mood to do that. All right. See you, people.